One virtual regular school board meeting to order for the Stevens Point Area Public School Board. And we are noting with public access to meetings that we are asking members of the public to attend remotely, and tonight is fully a virtual meeting. All board members other than myself are attending virtually, and we have only the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, Carlin, the superintendent's assistant, and Dan, who is in charge of the camera in this building. Everyone else is attending virtually. So we will have the meeting opening and roll call.
Mr. Mansky.
Here.
Ms. Va is excused tonight. Mr. Pope.
Here.
Ms. Portson. Here. Mr. Wade.
Present.
Ms. Scott.
Here.
Mr. Ebel.
Here.
Ms. Rano.
Here.
Ms. Erler.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will move into item 4, which are public comments. Due to the fact that due to the fact that we are fully virtual this month, in-person public comment is suspended for this month's virtual meeting. However, we will continue accepting comments submitted by email. We received one public comment related to the superintendent's report. It was by an individual, Matt Allen, Clover, Wisconsin. School board members, it would be appreciated to open the meetings back up to the public. Parents and caregivers should have a voice and not just an email during the meetings. Secondly, we were told the mask mandate would be evaluated quarterly. That should be on the agenda and is not. The medical decision to wear masks should be at doctor, parental, and the child's discretion. Furthermore, the testing program is designed poorly and should accept the rapid test results to achieve the lowest absentees. Thank you for your time. Father of 4. Were there any other public comments received via email?
There were not.
Okay, so that is the public comment we received. We will move into item 5, which is presentations, and we will start with Student Senate Representative Carolyn Blakeland.
Hi, it has been an eventful month.
Oh, you're jumbly.
Oh, can you hear me?
No, it's
Not great.
no. There's like fuzzy stuff.
Can you read it out?
No. It's your,
Want to try turning off your video? That might help your connection.
Yeah, I can try that. How about now?
you're really garbled.
I'm really sorry about that. It could be my computer or my Wi-Fi.
Why don't you just go ahead and I think we'll be able to hear the most. You'll just sound a little garbly.
Okay, sounds good. So it has been an eventful month at Stash. On Saturday, the girls swim team took first at sectionals. They will compete in the state tournament this weekend. The boys cross country team took a 4th place finish at the state tournament. Football finished their season as well, finishing first in the conference. Girls rugby placed 5th at state. Congratulations to all Stash fall athletes on a great season, and good luck to winter athletes as they start their season. Student Senate just concluded a school-wide food drive. Stash collected over 675 non-perishable items that were donated to Operation Bootstrap. What a way to kickstart the season of giving. This past Friday and Saturday, Smash Drama performed a night of one acts. They did a fantastic job, and we thank them for sharing their hard work with Smash. Smash students have an e-learning day next Monday for parent-teacher conferences. This concludes this week's video. My apologies for any technical issues.
We got it though. Thank you.
Yep, we got it, Carolyn. We've been dealing with them throughout this whole thing, so we appreciate you being here and providing the update.
Yeah, thank you for being patient.
Do any board members have any questions of Carolyn? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. We will move into item 5B, which is communication report. Sarah O'Donnell.
Included in your packets is the October communications dashboard. Nothing super surprising here. We saw media coverage dip a little bit for October month. We would expect to see that. We typically have much higher coverage in September because it's the start of school. People are excited, fun to cover. That said, we continue to see very high media coverage. Again, we're seeing sort of things getting picked up and then shared across the state. And we did have some additional statewide coverage throughout the month, which was great to see and helped to keep those numbers high for us. Across digital, both mostly through owned, we continue to see impressions increase. We did see a slight decrease in engagements specifically for the district channel. I'm okay with that. A lot of our engagement numbers were not necessarily around positive topics for the district. It might have been more voicing of opinion than necessarily engaging in that content in a way that we would like to see. So I'm okay with that. And then we did see a spike in our post link clicks, which just tells me what we're sharing is relevant. So we like to see that there. We continue to struggle a little bit on Twitter. Our families just aren't there. The channel we continue to share on. So I think that's probably something we'll have to consider as we look at kind of where we're sharing that message and where we're placing our time. Outbound messaging and inbound messaging, again, that's information we're sharing out compared to kind of the messaging that's coming back in through those engagements or through direct messaging. No big surprises there, slight decreases. However, I'm really happy to see that from what we're tagging and what those algorithms are tagging, we continue to see that those stories, if we pull just positive versus negative, much higher positive feedback. The only other thing I want to bring your attention to are project highlights. We continue to do the student success shout outs on Friday. Those have been super well received and really, I think just really fun to be able to highlight some of those students that might not traditionally be called out for achievement in school. So kudos to our staff members who are helping us to find those students and then celebrate their successes, as varied as they might be. And then we are continuing to work with human resources to try to find kind of some of those friction points and reduce that friction in terms of hiring. Katie, our new receptionist, is actually helping significantly with that. So a big thanks to her for stepping in and helping us get some of that put together.
Do board members have any questions of Sarah? All right, thank you, Sarah. We will move into the superintendent's report.
Thank you. We had our Bliss United Way campaign activities last week and raised $960 at the district office, as well as $5,200 for our individual donations, contributions, for a total of $6,214. That is a record for our Bliss staff, so thank you to all of our district Bliss employees. Next week is November 15th through 19th, American Education Week, and we certainly want to thank all of our staff members, especially this very challenging time, as they are really working through some very difficult times and doing the very best they can to create the best environment that we can for student learning. And we will, when I say we, our food service will actually be preparing, thankfully, cinnamon rolls for our district staff next week. Current school year update, I'm going to turn that over to Corey in terms of our numbers.
So currently we have 11 students that are positive, and 146 that are quarantined. Our quarantine numbers stay pretty much about the same from week to week, but our positives have dropped by about half, over the last few weeks. So that's a good thing. Right now we have 7 staff members that are positive and 8 quarantined. As you probably are aware, we did have to close 3 6th grade classrooms down at Bannock due to staff capacity and not being able to safely and effectively have in-person learning. And then we closed 1 classroom at Roosevelt down for 4 days. And that just happened within the last couple weeks.
As noted and communicated earlier, we are going to have a makeup day the week of Thanksgiving for Monday and Tuesday. It'll be a makeup e-learning day for students that are behind, and then it'll be working in the building's classrooms for our staff. That ties directly into number 4, our staffing update. We are experiencing right now a 75% fill rate for teachers and teaching assistants. So what that means, each day between our teachers and our teaching assistants, whether it be regular classroom or special education assistants, 25% of those staff members are not available. That means we have all of the other staff that are filling in during their lunch hours, their prep hours, and that just is creating exhaustion throughout our school district. That creates people then calling in to stay home because they're not feeling well enough to come to work because they're exhausted. We need to do something. This is not a long-term fix to anything. It's very much a short-term fix, but we just believe, noting that we could have a few extra days to get some work done in our classroom, and then again continue to assist those students that needed additional help will continue to receive that. Again, that will be the week of Thanksgiving, and we're hoping that'll have some reflection when we come back to a stronger fill rate. Our goal is to keep our buildings open 5 days a week in person, and without getting into, specific metrics, because each building is a little bit different. At 75%, we're getting low. And we can't continue to, have that fill rate get lower without shutting down classrooms. Therein lies, quite frankly, taking a couple days and having restructuring instruction and giving staff more time in their buildings to prepare. This has been a very common practice this fall throughout the state. And I'd like to do a shout out to Riley Peczynski. She is a girls golf state champion, junior. I believe that's what I have. Questions?
Go ahead, Barb.
On that Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving, has that been told yet what is required of them? Can they work from home? Are they working just in the classrooms? I assume there's no meetings or any TV or anything, right?
That's all going to be finalized tomorrow, Barb, at our cabinet meeting, and then communication will come out shortly thereafter.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
The quick answer to meetings, though, is no. We aren't going to load them down with meetings all day long, because there's other work they need to do in preparation for their classroom assignments or their classroom responsibilities.
I had a question, Greg, on the low fill rate on classes. Have we gotten to the point where we've had to have a teacher teaching 2 classes at the same time?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, wow. And it's, in your opinion, directly related to COVID, or is this something that's going to continue?
If you talk about our COVID numbers, it's not because we have staff out because they've tested positive. It's we have people out that are quarantined, and it's just COVID has caused a level of exhaustion, period. And then when people are exhausted, quite frankly, they may call in sick more often. That said, all aside, our list of substitutes is as low as it's ever been in my career. We still have open teaching positions, much less a substitute pool of applicants. So it's a crisis related to a lack of substitutes. That now, however, isn't any different than any other industry or business. People are having a very difficult time finding people to work. I think what's happened, however, substitute teaching for many is a great either career for some or part-time for others. It's not as appealing to go into a school during COVID as it is during a regular school year because of the protocols and the stresses. And quite frankly, many of our subs are older, and they're not interested in going into a school where there's 500 kids, which could increase, chances of possibly being positive for COVID. So I think there's a lot of complications there. It's COVID as well as what we're seeing across our country with workforce development or lack thereof.
When I was looking at our current openings, I was looking at non-certified staff. I couldn't believe there were more than 4 pages worth of openings for everything from JV swimming coach to regular ed aide or people serving food and things like that. Are you looking on Weekend? No, I'm looking on our own website. Is it truly that?
We don't have pages of openings right now.
Okay.
Beth, how many teaching positions do we have open?
We actually are looking to hire 1 teacher at this point, but we do have 11 openings for support staff in terms of EAs or special ed EAs.
So Beth, what about transportation, food service, maintenance, all of our support?
So we're doing okay with our custodians. Food service, I think, is finally all of our positions are filled. There may be one or 2 food service positions still open, but she seems to be doing okay at this point. It's not uncommon, for there to be quite a list for coaches. That's kind of been a challenge for us for the last couple of years.
Are those real? Are they real openings right now? Because I just looked before we came on. Are they openings that have been filled and just haven't been taken off the list?
Some are in the works.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's very common before each sports season that we have quite a few openings between junior high and high school.
Thank you.
We are a large employer in Portage County, one of the largest employers, and like every other employer in this county, we are struggling with openings. So it's an ongoing, but it's also exasperated by the fact that if a staff member of ours, especially a teacher, is not available in the classroom, we need to have someone filling that capacity, and as Craig pointed out, we aren't able to find subs to support that. And so the existing staff in the building are doing double time to cover that.
Well, in going around the mostly northeastern part of the state, I talked to teachers in many different school districts, and I can certainly attest to that. There is a level of weariness amongst teachers all over the place, and I can see it's also in our school district.
Are there any other questions from board members of Craig with respect to the report? I just want to note that Portage County continues I've been receiving, I know administration's been receiving weekly updates from public health in Portage County. And Portage County continues to be high, rated high in terms of COVID experience. Our county continues to experience deaths and hospitalizations, the fill rate for ICU in the whole north central area of this county is around 97+%. There are members of our community who are not able to access the health care they need within our community. That is why our district is continuing to maintain the safety protocols that we have maintained since the beginning of this year. Because we do have students who are positive for COVID, and we have close contact. We have staff who are positive for COVID, but we also are very aware that we have many people within our community who are also continuing to be vulnerable for COVID. And we are a village. This community is a village. And we need to be aware not only what's happening within our schools, but what's happening with our hospitals, our medical professions, and the care that people need during this time where Delta is still active in this community. All right, we move into the consent agenda is the minutes of the prior school board meeting of October 11th, 21, the minutes of the budget public hearing of October 25, 2021, the minutes of the special school board meeting of 10/25/21, the approval of the schedule of monthly bills, and employment recommendations. I am looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve, Jeff.
Second, Judy.
So I have a motion by Jeff Ebel and a second by Judy. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, I will ask Carlin to call the roll due to the monthly bills.
Mr. Wade,
Yes.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Ebel,
Yes.
Mr. Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Portson,
Yes.
Ms. Rano. Ms. Rano,
Yes, sorry.
Mr. Mansky,
Yes.
Ms. Erler,
Yes.
and motion carries.
All right, we will move into our item 7, business services. Mike, would you like to run this portion, or do you want me to do it from here?
You know, I would like for you to do it, Meg.
Well, once you get back here, you're going to be running it. All right, so we will move into item 7A, which is approval of the 2022-23 budget calendar guideline, and I will turn that over to Tom Owens.
Okay, good evening. We don't need a whole lot of discussion on this because we visited at least 3 times a year. We just finished talking about the various phases that these outlined in last month's meeting, the allocation phase, the budget building, assembly, and adjustments, and then the adoption again in October. These bullet points here just basically take us through those 5 stages of the budget building process and lay them out by months. And of course, we can always slide them one way or the other if we need, or modify this at any time during the year. So I'd recommend approval.
Do I have a motion to approve the budget calendar guideline for the 2022-23 school year?
So move, Mike.
Second, Barb.
So motion by Mike Wade and a second by Barb Portson. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor with aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed with nay? Motion is carried. We will move into item 7B, which is approval of the per pupil and department allocations for the 2022-23 budget.
Okay, with the adoption of the calendar, this is the first stage of the allocation phase, whereby we set the per pupil amounts. Actually, the per pupil amounts themselves have not changed. They remain the same. The only thing that's in flux is the enrollments, etc. Because of the change in enrollments, there is a small 1% increase net over the entire batch of schools, amounting to $16,345, of which I would recommend approval of that. And then in Table 2, you see the department and program allocations. They remain the same as they were. The recommendation is the same for next year as they are this year. No increases in the allocations. So I'd recommend approval of the per pupil allocations in the amount of $1,741,740, and the per pupil department, the department allocations in the amount of $7,470,118.
So I will be looking for a motion to approve the adoption of the building per pupil allocation as proposed at a total of $1,741,740.
So moved.
Motion by Scott. Do I have a second?
Second, Wade.
Second by Mike Wade. So the motion is, it's a no increase for the building per pupil allocation in the amount of $1,741,740. All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with nay? Motion carries. The second recommendation would be to move to approve the adoption of the department program allocation as proposed at a total of $7,470,118.
So moved, Jeff. Oh. Second.
Okay, so that's a motion by Jeff, and who seconded?
I did, Chris.
Okay, Chris, so a motion by Ebel and a second by Scott. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with nay? Motion carries. We will move into C, which is the financial summary, the referendum progress report.
Okay, here we continue along on our reporting. We have paid to date 64.6 million. Contracts to date issued are 73.1 million, and contract balance is 8,500,000. So we're moving along. We're awaiting the next set of bids, which will probably have to do with the support service buildings and the rest of the developments moving along for other projects down the road like Bannock, etc. We're getting close to the end here. Another 5 or 10 years and we'll be done.
No, don't say that, Tom. So do board members have any questions of Tom with respect to the referendum project? This is an information-only item. I guess any alarm bells, Tom, or is everything moving the way we want it to move?
Well, we've got our fingers crossed. We've had a few delays of material because of COVID, but so far we've been lucky. It hasn't been anything that's significant that's gotten in our way, and we just keep our fingers crossed on the upcoming bids that they'll come in good.
I have a question.
Yes.
When we passed that recurring revenue, or I mean the recurring referendum, we had earmarked money for maintenance, for maintaining our buildings and equipment.
Yes.
Has any major capital projects, have any major capital projects been identified since that time that will not be able to be covered with the money that we've already allocated? Know of any?
Well, there are some roofing projects that were a little, have to be addressed in the upcoming few years. And that operational referendum provided $3.5 million. It was $1 million for technology, $1 million or $2 million for staffing, and then $500,000 for, like you say, buildings and grounds. We have lost about 1.7 million of that authority, so that's an issue. Excuse me, yeah, 3.5 million. That's correct. Yeah, so that's going to limit us in some of our project work. Yes.
So explain that loss you mentioned.
Well, what's happened over the last years since the referendum approved that increase in the operational, we have lost students because of COVID. Because of that, it reduces our revenue limit, and we've gone down over the last several years enough that we've, I think it was 1.7 million so far that we've lost, and we'll lose a little bit more yet. Plus, we're not getting any increase in the revenue limit for the 2 years of this biennial budget, so we fall further behind in that, because normally we get about $1.5 million to 1.7 million additional funds each year to help with these things, and we're not getting that either. So that's one of the reasons I pointed out when we did the budget why our operational or shortfall is actually growing, and will probably grow again next year because of the legislative edicts.
Okay, so you'll keep us posted again if something moves up to the front as a priority.
Yes.
Something major that's not covered with the funds that we've already.
Yes, definitely.
Any other questions from board members with respect to the referendum update?
Meg,
Go ahead,
I had
Dave.
a question about, I want to ask this question before Tom is done. It's about the balance sheet highlights that he put out for us. Can I ask that now, or should I wait?
No, that'll come up. I think that's the next item.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other question with respect to the referendum projects? All right, Tom, let's move into then the review of financial statements.
Yeah, Mike will take that.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Mike.
Well, the financial statements are through September 30th of 2021. Just as a reminder that we're looking at September because in November, we're closing the month of October. So we're always looking back a couple months. Just a little information on the reports that I provided. One of the reports is a revenue expenditure highlight report. That's going to highlight our major revenue sources, such as property taxes, interest on investments, student fees, state aids, equalized aids, things like that. So one of the things, if you're looking at that report, that you may notice is that we did receive $6.4 million in equalized aid in September, but that was the last 15% of the 2020-21 aid. We won't be receiving any additional equalization aid until December. Also, in that same report, you can compare expenditures from one year to the next. So if you want to look at expenditures in Fund 10, you would see that at this time last year, our Fund 10 expenditures overall were 17.5% of our budget, and this year at this point in time, they're 16.5%. They're generally pretty close. The second report, I think G just mentioned this, is the balance sheet report. In the balance sheet report, those are the highlights that will give you a description of each fund and also each fund's fund balance. So one of the things in that report, you'll be able to look down toward the bottom of the page where you see the equity accounts, and that's where you can get the fund balance. So in Fund 10, our general fund, the fund balance as of September 30th was at 17.2 million, which was down a little bit from the previous month as expected. And it will continue to go down as we pay our bills until we receive that equalized aid payment in December. That's my report. Were there some questions? I think G had a question.
Oh, gee, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry.
No worries.
On that same page, under Fund 10, the first paragraph, the cash, I was reading through that and I see there's a negative balance in the second to the last line. It talks about a negative balance of all the consolidated funds. And then it says Fund 10 had a negative balance of about 5.5 million. Now, I don't know much about the budget, but if I see negative balance, that bothers me. And I'm wondering what does that mean?
That's a really good question, G. In fact, when I first walked into this position, I thought the same thing. You know, why is that negative? And the reason why it's negative is that when we pay our bills, we write it in our books immediately that we're paying those bills, but we may not actually pay the bills out of our bank account until later. So what we do is we keep all of our cash, our liquid cash, actually in an investment account that's very liquid. It can be moved on a daily basis. And then we wait until those bills actually hit the bank and we need to pay them. That just allows us to grab a little bit of interest, even though interest rates are really, really low right now. That's what we do. We wait till the last minute. So then when we take that snapshot at the end of the month, that cash account appears negative. But the investment account that goes alongside it is not negative. And I'm just looking to see if I gave you the total of the investment account on that highlight sheet, which I didn't. So I'll just go, let's see, it's going to be on the balance sheet, actual balance sheet report. Let me just pull that quick. It's a lot of pages. So if you look at investments, which is the fourth line down on the actual balance sheet, we're at 23 million. Those investments we can grab from that on a daily basis. And so even though the cash appears negative, we're not negative in terms of cash. Does that sort of make sense?
It appears to be a lag time between, it goes on our books before it's actually pulled out.
Yeah, it's just like your own personal checking account. You write the check, you put it on your ledger, but the person on the other end doesn't necessarily cash the check immediately. So that's all it is. It's a timing issue. It's a timing thing.
And then that 17 million that you mentioned earlier in the reserve fund,
yep,
that's the fund that was around 22 million or so as of the end of last year. the fiscal year? That's that fund, right?
Yeah,
Okay. All right, thank you.
you're welcome.
Do any other board members have any questions of Mike? And maybe just something, because I know it's a, school finance is confusing. The reality, like Mike noted, is that we're not gonna get paid any of the main revenue that we will be paid this year until I believe is December the first payment, Mike?
Yeah, about the second week in December is when we receive a fairly substantial equalized aid payment.
So that 17 million that we're seeing in the reserve, again, is really a cash flow for us. It's to support us during this period of our budget where we're not seeing the revenues. Because that's just the reality of what's happening. And, you know, if we didn't have reserve, like many school districts in our state, then we would have to be short-term borrowing during this time, which would actually be more of a cost to district taxpayers, because we'd be borrowing and paying short-term interest on it, and as Mike noted, we're not making any money, you know. I mean, there's not a lot of interest being paid in short-term investment at this point.
No, and that will hit a low point at the end of, the lowest it gets is usually the end of November, and then until we get those payments in December. But as long as we stay positive there, we won't have to borrow, and we should be okay.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mike. All right, hearing no more questions, we will move into item 9, educational services, which is the district calendar 2022-2023. And I'm going to turn that over to Connie and Corey.
Hi, everyone. We are presenting and hoping for approval for the final 2022-23 district calendar. Just a few highlights on this final draft. This calendar will now include the third year of a gradual start for students. What that means is students new to a building, 4K, kindergarten, 7th grader and 10th graders, they start school being exclusively the only students in the building that year. This has been something that happened as a result of COVID that has turned out to be extremely positive for kids. They have the entire day in the building. Staff, administration provide a really outstanding orientation program for them. They can have some time to figure out the logistics of the building, including lunch and lockers and where the classrooms are, and a real orientation to the building in a really smaller environment. So the calendar includes that, again, as that was really a positive as expressed by families and staff. Our instructional days, the calendar is always built around exceeding what the DPI benchmarks are for instructional hours. So this calendar does that as well. In addition, it fits into the contracted days for teachers and educational assistants. Included are 5 professional development days throughout the school year. We continue to support those for collaboration time with our staff to work together on new materials and curriculum changes, as well as any building level professional development initiatives that are taking place. Those days then become e-learning days for students, and what we've been doing is having those days as catch-up for kids, which has been really, really useful for kids to just be able to make sure that they're on time and completing all the tasks that they need to complete. We did build in one new component for the calendar this year, and that was a no school day for staff or students at the end of October. We learned this year that's a nice break and needed for staff and students. So that's one day that's built in at the end of October where there's, as I mentioned, no school for students or for staff. And then finally, You might notice the calendar has a bit of a new look. Corey was able to share some other district calendars, and this has we felt has a better readability to it, and really outlines very carefully what each of those symbols means and when, so that parents and families understand completely what days are no school, what days are e-learning, and what days staff report. So in addition, has an additional document where you can look at the calendar on days days at a glance. So you can look at it by month. What are some outlining the same thing that's on the calendar page. So we are asking any questions?
Kind of just a comment, great looking calendar, really. Love the symbols. Very, very self-explanatory. Thank you. And Corey, thank you.
You bet.
Any questions of board members to Connie or Corey with respect to the proposed calendar for 2022-2023? Hearing none, then I would be looking for a motion to approve the final 2022-2023 district calendar as presented.
So moved, Rob.
Second, Judy.
So motion by Rob Mansky, second by Judy Rano. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with nay? That motion carries. We will move into item B, which is additional secondary course proposals 2022-2023.
Last month, we brought to the board new course proposals that, as we mentioned last month, those are initiated by staff members, supported by building principals, come to Director of Elementary and Secondary Education, and then onto the board for final approval. There were 3 additional courses that came in that we thought were important to present to the board to ask for approval. The first course is within the Family and Consumer Science department. This is a course that PJ Jacobs would like to pilot. It's an elective course within Family and Consumer Science. And they would like to try that at PJ Jacobs Junior High School. This would be a course that students could choose, as I mentioned, for elective credit, where they're partnering to create a really inclusive climate, to partner with students who may not have access to that class, to really focus on teaching life skills, to learn about inclusive environments, to explore opportunities for students who might want to work in such kinds of related careers. And again, this is a course that the staff would like to try, and I support at PJ Jacobs as an elective FACS class for next school year. And I believe Danny might be on this WebEx. She was instrumental in working with the staff to propose and design this class. So if there are any questions, I welcome those at this time.
Do board members have any questions with respect to the Facts with Friends elective course at PJ's for 2022-23 as a pilot? Okay. All right, Connie, go ahead. What are the other 2 courses?
The second is a math course that was proposed by the leadership at SPASH. This is a course that might be an alternative to Algebra 2 for some students. We have been working extremely hard, taking a look at our entire math sequencing at the high school. Specifically, we've been looking at the number of students that we have in extended courses and the popularity that we have seen with the geometry and construction course. This is a class that is, again, more of an applied math class where kids are really having very authentic and meaningful application of the math concepts. These would be for students who would take algebra, geometry, and may look for an alternative besides Algebra 2, so it would be an applied math class. This is, again, a course that would fulfill the 3rd year of math. without being an extended class, but much more of an application. And again, this was really proposed as the popularity that we have seen with the geometry construction course.
Do board members have any questions with respect to this new math course? Okay, how about the economics dual enrollment?
And the final course was proposed by our social studies department at SPASH. Noticed in our social studies as we start to look at our curriculum that we have an AP Econ course. We don't have kind of a general track for students who want to pursue economics. We've also noticed that we have some standards that we may not be meeting in terms of some of the econ standards. This is a course that not only they're proposing as a really good way for students who want to take a general econ class, but for students who want to prepare for the AP Econ class. And in addition, it is now a dual enrollment class. So students who take this course can have the opportunity to earn credit with Midstate as well. So that means that the curriculum that was developed in this class matches the Midstate curriculum.
Do board members have any questions about the economics dual enrollment course just described? So hearing none, I would look for a motion to recommend approval of the new secondary courses as presented.
Move to approve, Judy.
Second, Chris.
Motion by Judy and a second by Chris. Any discussion or questions on the motion?
I have a couple, Meg.
Go
First
ahead.
of all, I'd like to thank our staff for seeing needs amongst our students and moving to fulfill those needs by taking on the task of making new curriculum, which is not easy. But I do have a question. In all the proposals for new courses, you see the proposal, but there's never anything filled in for a dollar amount. And I know that they cost. Why don't we have people fill in those dollar amounts?
Well, basically, the dollar amounts, G, would involve, which is still to be worked on, a course fee, which many times we do attach to particularly elective courses, not core courses. The other is that you can't really determine that it's going to be an increase in FTE because we, at our secondary level, we staff based on what students choose. So we can't say that by adding an additional course is going to increase FTE because it might take away from a different course. So really the only costs associated with these new courses would be any course fee for a consumable. So in family consumer science courses, when there are involving food, or a tech ed class that involves materials where kids are using those materials and then are taking those products home, the only cost associated would be with the fee. And again, as I mentioned, we can't say that it's an increase in FTE because we never know how that is, because everything is based on student choice and when those numbers come in February.
Well, are you saying that if they don't have enough interest in a class, that then it obviously wouldn't go, so they don't want to put a cost down?
We traditionally look at having to have 20 students in the class to have that class run. Those 20 kids that have chosen a new class probably typically didn't choose a different class. So as much as it might be an FTE increase to add that new class, it's probably a decline on something else. Again, it's always based on student choice.
Now, I understand what you're saying, Connie. The reason I'm asking this is if we're replacing a class or have a new course, part of developing that new course is to have at least a good start on the curriculum before you want to introduce the course. And I see things like field trips, equipment, instructional materials, and to put nothing down, leads me to believe that, well, that we haven't looked at that yet. And I would think that, if you've really done a lot of planning, that the teachers that are planning this would be able to put something in there. And I realize it's not a big cost in the realm of the whole budget, but, the better the planning is, the better the course is gonna be.
Yeah, I certainly
My
understand.
only
Yeah,
reservation.
I understand that if one of these new classes does get the enrollment, there will be additional cost to that. But it all ties into the end scheduling process that we go through. This spring, Connie will be likely recommending additional FTE, and it typically is another section in this particular class or that particular class. We also likely will be coming forward with layoffs, and it might be an hour for this class and an hour for that. It might be a half-time FTE, because we've got to go through the process in terms of what the kids are going to take. If we have a new class that has 20 students, as Connie said, likely there's going to be a reduction somewhere else, and there'll be a class that won't meet, and there'll be a reduction in those costs regarding that particular class. So all of that gets into a much more detailed process, if I may. But in the spring, you will be asked to increase FTE in certain areas at the secondary and likely decrease areas in the area of secondary.
Well, I understand what you're saying. It's I would say, not very easy to write a budget for a course, new course, because like you said, the cost of teaching those kids will be drawn from other courses they might have otherwise taken. My only reservation is that if you're going to go to the trouble of drawing up their curriculum for a new course, then you should have some idea of things you'll need to purchase, field trips you might want to take, that you would be able to put down some numbers that would indicate, in reality what this would cost. To me, it goes into planning, and if you can plan those things and to say, yes, part of this course is a field trip to the Shed Aquarium or something like that, that you would be able to estimate costs for that and say, even though we know it's coming from another.
Those decisions really get left to the building. For example, this would be John Vollendorf's budget at SPASH, where he has a high school budget, and then as Tom talked about earlier, there's allocations per pupil per teacher. So teachers have a level of spending, it's not necessarily dependent on the courses that they're teaching, although we do understand that some courses cost more. Therein lies what Connie's talking about, whether it's food service or tech ed, there might be materials costs. But a teacher that teaches 6 classes and has a new class added, they're still only going to teach 6 classes, so they'll have a reduction of a class. Their budget likely doesn't change from one year to the next, because we haven't increased the per pupil allotment.
And one thing that's useful is that when we have classes that are duly enrolled with Midstate, that curriculum's already written. So those teachers have already worked with Midstate. The curriculum is developed for the econ class. The curriculum for the new math class, they had been working on as a part of the application math classes. So true, there's always time to pay teachers to develop new curriculums, but most of these curriculums are set and ready to go for next year.
Well, I think, so G, I do want to note from a board perspective, last month we set the budget. I mean, we set the budget, and clearly we are under the constraints of the state because our budget is frankly several $1 million in the red this year and potentially over the next 2 years, because the state legislature, and frankly in its infinite wisdom, chose not to provide us with any per pupil increase this year. So ultimately, when new courses come forward, it's because leadership in those buildings believe that a shift will better support student needs within that building. They're not going to get any more money, because there is no more money. They've got their money, and a huge part of their job is making sure that the money that we've allocated to them best supports the needs of the student population within that building. And you know, I don't want to say, but I guess I will, the devil is in the details within each of our building, working in partnership with administration to provide the best opportunities possible for students. As we move forward, recognizing that they're not going to get any additional money than what we told them last month they were going to get, which is no more than they got last year. You know, there will be some additional funds. We know that with our ESSER funds for COVID, you know, for the next several years, 3 years. But we're still kind of up in the air about what that money can even be used for. It's not going to be being used for ongoing ad infinitum regular programming in our schools. So.
Well, I understand when Craig says that there's money at that school, you know, that discretionary money on the part of the principal for these things. But as I go through this, and then I see there's a whole section, number 5, says estimated budget, and it's just, there never is anything there. And my point is that if you're gonna create new coursework, things like that, that budget goes along with the planning. And if we're not gonna do that, then we should just strike that section out of there. It doesn't make sense to me to plan the course and not deal with any of the possible costs, even though you know they're coming from another place.
Yeah, that's fair point. That's a fair point, Jay.
I don't want to belabor it, but
no, I understand what you're saying.
If we're not going to ask people to estimate a cost for the course, then don't put it in.
You just clarified to me what you're saying. Yes, there are costs for that. That doesn't necessarily mean there's an increase to the overall budget.
Right.
Yeah.
Because those funds might be transferred from another class, but so noted. We'll discuss that as we continue to bring new courses forward, and that makes sense.
Thank you.
Are there any other board questions with respect to the 3 new secondary courses being presented? Hearing, do I have a motion? I think I have a motion. And then I think G asked a question.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a motion and a second.
Motion by Judy
Yeah.
and second by Chris.
Okay. So the question is on the table. Are there any questions with respect to the motion? And the motion is to recommend approval of the new secondary courses as presented. Hearing none, all those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with nay? Motion carries. Moving into item C, which is Early College Credit Program, Start College Now Program, Dual Credit Courses Report, and that's turning back to Connie.
This is for information only for the board. Each year we give you a report on those programs that our high school students have that are 3 different opportunities for students to enroll in courses that they would receive high school and college credit for. So the first 2 are the Early College Credit Program, where students can enroll in courses at UWSP or another four-year college in the state, if it's an online opportunity. If the course is not offered at SPASH, and the student is wanting to take a class at UWSP, students enroll in the Early College Credit Program. There's a limit to the number of credits that they can take, which is 18. Typically, students, the vast majority of our kids that enroll in our Early College Credit Program are looking for extended math opportunities. In other words, they've exhausted all the math classes available at SPASH. But there's several other courses as well. So some students have exhausted all of the sociology courses, or you might even have exhausted all of their Spanish classes, as an example. So those are students that are taking courses at UWSP. They earn high school credit and they earn college credit. The other is Start College Now, and that is where students will enroll in some of our technical schools. The most popular courses that students enroll is they start a program for EMT or a CNA program. And those are classes with our technical schools, typically mid-state. And again, students earn those credits for their high school graduation, as well as earning technical school credit that they can apply if they choose to go to a technical school, or they can apply those credits to a four-year institution, many of which will accept those credits as additional credits to go to the four-year institution. Those two programs are for students who are in high school, attending SPASH or CFC or Point of Discovery School that are taking courses on site at UWSP or at our technical school. The final way that students can earn high school and college credit is through our dual enrollment. And it's something to be pretty proud of in the number of courses that we have at our high school that are dually enrolled courses. The list is provided to you. Students enroll in those classes and they can get high school credit, and then if they choose, they can also apply to have that as a duly enrolled credit. And again, the same circumstance, they're not going to another institution, they're staying at SPASH, but they can enroll and apply to get that dual enrollment, and it can take those credits and apply them to a technical school if that's their post-secondary plan, or if they go to a four-year secondary institution, many of which will accept these courses as additional credits. So they'll come into their freshman year with some credits in hand before even starting a class at a post-secondary institution. The last table on this report gives you kind of a three-year summary of where we are with the number of kids that are taking, are participating in each of those three programs. We did see a dip in the dual credit. That was during last school year. We're guessing that kids were taking those classes at SPASH that were dual enrollment courses, but may not have applied to get the dual enrollment credit, because if you recall, they were just in classes 2 days a week during that last school year. So we're anticipating and guessing that is what that accounts for that dip. But otherwise, we're seeing pretty steady and consistent enrollment in our early college credit and our Start College Now, some actual increase in Start College Now. One exciting thing that just happened was Admit Day at Mid-State, where we had some of our...
Where are you at? Oh, good girl.
Judy.
Sorry.
That's okay. I thought you were saying good girl to me. I was going to say, okay.
Oh, sorry, my cat.
So we have more students at CFC and some of our high school students at PODS that are participating in the Start College Now program. So there's a slight increase in that this school year. So again, this is just a report to the board. I think it's something that we really should take pride in the number of kids that are leaving our high school with post-secondary credits, whether it's at UWSP with Early College Credit Program, whether it's at Mid-State on site with Start College Now, or whether they're taking all their classes as SPASH, but they're walking out with additional credits they can transfer to any institution that they're going.
Do board members have any questions of Connie with respect to the annual report on these programs?
I don't have a question. I just think this is great because I've seen firsthand what it does for the students that do graduate with those credits. And I think it's great that as many students can take advantage of it as possible.
Any other comments from board members? I just want to note, I appreciate the fact, I mean, we saw some last month and we saw one this month, so clearly as faculty are looking at what additional offerings we can provide to students, they are keeping in mind if there's an opportunity to make them dual credit, they're jumping through all those hoops that are necessary to do that, and I think that's great. The more we can expand those opportunities in terms of the courses provided that are dual credit, the better it'll be for our students who choose to take those classes. That's proactive, progressive thinking. So.
Thank you, Meg, for mentioning that. It's really a shout out to our staff because the staff need to be approved by Mid-State. When we have dual enrollment, they have to be approved by Mid-State in terms of meeting the requirements for an instructor. And sometimes that involves staff getting additional training. And so this list continues to grow each year, which means our staff are going above and beyond to be qualified to be teaching as a dual and credit instructor. And so yeah, that's pretty exciting that our staff keep doing that.
Connie, I would agree that this is just such a great opportunity for kids. And I was just wondering, what is the best way that we let students and parents know about this? Is it through counselors? Because it's such an the offerings are just amazing.
One of the great thing about advisories, and yes, Chris, counselors, when they meet with their students are talking about these opportunities consistently. But one of the great things about advisories is that we're able to present these programs so that there is a heightened awareness for all students. Kids might enroll in a dual enrollment class. Of course, the instructor is going to share that that's an opportunity, but then you also have that added support through advisory where kids are aware that if you take a dual enrollment course and you have an opportunity then to earn credits that you can carry with you to other secondary institutions. And quite frankly, all the many more of the Mid-State dual enrollment classes, four-year institutions are accepting gladly.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a great opportunity, and I hope we're doing a great shout out, to let students know and let parents know, because when you talk to kids who've got those credits, it's such a help, especially with tuition, the way it is today. So kudos to our district. They're amazing offerings.
Any other comments by board members? This is an information item only. Hearing none, we will move into item 13, which is our future meeting dates and times. Our next meeting is scheduled for December 13th, and then our next meeting will be January 10th. At this point, while we are having virtual meetings, we are suspending committee meetings. As soon as we're able to be back together in person, we will be activating those committee meetings. I am looking to a motion to go into closed session under 1985 paren 1 paren G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, specifically the open meeting violation complaint. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Okay, and was that Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, motion by Chris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Jeff. Any discussion or question on the motion? I will have Carlin call the roll.
Ms. Rano,
Yes.
Mr. Ebel,
Yes.
Ms. Portson,
Yes.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Pope,
Yes.
Mr. Mansky,
Yes.
Ms. Erler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
So we will need about 10 minutes. We ask you to sign out of this meeting, and then board members, please sign back into the closed session portion of the virtual meeting.